I've said it before on this channel that feminism does not appeal to women universally or homogeneously. Feminism appeals specifically to those women who feminism benefits the most, which is the most self-driven, high-achieving, productive women. And that's what makes feminism so insidious, is that it has many of these kinds of intelligent, assertive women who are able to lead the movement, and these are also the women who are in the least need of male protection. They're not the kinds of women who are in need of physical protection in any sense other than, just the police existing. Affluent women, to put it in one word. And the really insidious thing about that I've just been thinking about is that these women have the most to gain from working in, let's say, working in the man's world, working jobs that were previously seen as men's work. Women who are, let's say, a little bit more masculine, a little bit more assertive, can do very well out of these jobs, and they probably can end up getting married to a man anyway, after all. And then they end up getting the best of both worlds. But that is not most women. It's women who are the most intelligent, creative, the most self-driven and productive. These are the women who can benefit most from being in the workforce, working in classically men's jobs. But they're also the women who really we need to be having the most children, the women who should be staying at home to have children. If we're thinking about things from on an economic scale, on the scale of our country, of our civilization, that the women who are married to the most productive, intelligent men, it would really benefit everyone in the future for these women to be having 3, 4 or 5 children instead of 0 or none. And yet what we have at the moment is the complete inverse of that. So let's say that a woman wants to be a doctor and that she has the personality and aptitude to become a doctor. Well, to be a doctor, she's going to need to train for somewhere between sort of 5 to 10 years of her prime childbearing years to get to the point where she's able to start helping people. But that same woman, if she'd spent those 5 to 10 years having children, she could have 2 to 5 children who would be doctors one day. So for that woman to be a doctor and to not have those children, it's kind of it's like burning your floorboards to stay warm. We're using up the future doctors in order to make one doctor now. Because of course a woman who is educated and intelligent enough to be to go into being a doctor is probably going to be married to a man who is of a similar level of sort of competence and intelligence as she is. And you could say some women don't want to have that many children, and many of the women who are doctors don't want to have 2 to 5 children, and you'd be right. But wanting to have children or wanting to be a doctor is not something that exists in a vacuum. People's desires for themselves and what they're going to do with their lives are very much dependent on what they believe will provide value to society, what they believe will bring them the most esteem of their peers, or what will elevate their status the most, in crude terms. But basically they just want to be of use to people. They want people to like them. They want to be a productive member of society. And the belief now among women is that, oh well, you can be a housewife if you want to be. You can have 5 children if you want. But the kind of the subtle undertone of that is like, why would you want to do that? That's kind of like selfish and boring. But if somehow, I'm not saying this will ever happen, but in the past when it was not seen as very selfish and boring to have 5 children, there was probably a lot more women who naturally decided that's what they wanted to do. In times when women could not be doctors, there weren't loads of women who just were absolutely aching with the desire to be a doctor. It's not something that sort of naturally springs out of someone's mind unless that's an option that they have that is being encouraged. Being a doctor or being a being a lawyer or being any kind of educated professional is so it's so tightly linked to being just considered intelligent, that it's really difficult to parse out exactly how many people would in a vacuum decide that they would like to be a doctor or to be a lawyer or an engineer or anything. Yeah, most of all women. To put it crudely, women's desire to become a mother actually is something that spontaneously exists in nature, that doesn't need to be culturally enforced. I've often thought that it's funny that when people see that a life choice or that some gender role is being encouraged by society, they point to that cultural phenomenon as the reason why women want to get married and have children, say, instead of the other way around, thinking that maybe wanting to get married and have children is something that women want, that is why it is enforced by the culture. And so while there's a lot of hatred and disgust that goes around regarding feminism and feminists, I think it's actually more of a tragedy that feminism has almost like stolen what I consider to be some of the best women from our society. They've sort of plucked them out of the gene pool and got them to chase around a hamster wheel doing spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, when they would really be happier and do the society more good if they were at home taking care of their children and their home. And these days that sounds like a quite offensive thing to say to a woman, get back in the kitchen and start making sandwiches. But there's really no reason why it should be an insult to a woman to ask her to do that or to expect her to do that. It is certainly, I'm not suggesting that anyone should be forced to do that against their will. I think that would be barbaric. But it's not a bad way to live your life. It's not an unfortunate fate for anyone to live, especially if you have an affluent, intelligent, caring husband. There's no shame in it. There's nothing insulting about it to suggest to an intelligent woman that might be the best use of her time. But it's come to be stigmatized in that way because there's so much out there. The things that men do out in the world are valued by men, if that makes sense. The entire value structure of our culture is revolved around making money and having a creative job, a high-skilled job and a degree and lots of money. We've put such a low value on the work of women in the house that we now think it's an insult to expect women to do it, or to even suggest that they would be doing a good thing for their society if they did. And a lot of it comes back to this belief our culture has in the blank slate, the idea that your children are just completely unique individuals who are just going to pick up their personalities and their behavior and their traits from their environment, and how they're raised, and that it has nothing to do with genetics of the mother or the father. It's such an important idea. That you can't think properly, you can't organize society properly without understanding the fact that a lot of someone's behavior, a lot of their traits is inherited from their parents. There's a strange contradiction in our culture at the moment where people both believe that and don't believe it. It's sort of like people know about it and they believe it, but they won't acknowledge it even to themselves. And it's in feminism and in lots of other things, it completely blocks off any kind of a useful thought that you can have about how society should be ordered. It's really the one belief that will stand in the way of understanding just reality or to make sensible decisions about society.